Small disclaimer before we get into this video. This video does contain a fair amount of strong language. With that said, enjoy. So, I was going to make this video anyway, but when I woke up ready to start making the video, I found that Late Night Gaming had already done a video on it. And if you don't know what this topic is, well, you haven't read the title then, or the thumbnail. It's microtransactions in Halo Wars 2. I'll leave a link to Late Night's video in the description below, so be sure to check that out if you haven't. He goes through a lot of the facts and his own opinions about Halo Wars 2's microtransaction system, and he sort of explains why he feels it shouldn't be a thing. Now, the general consensus within the Halo community at the moment is that Halo Wars 2's microtransaction system is a bad idea. Not so much the system itself, but the fact that they're doing paid DLC as well. So they're completely retconning the whole free DLC thing that Halo 5 did, and they've basically said, screw it, we're making you pay for DLC for Halo Wars 2. And we know this is happening because they've already announced the Season Pass. Which means if the Season Pass players have to pay for that, and the normal people who didn't buy it got free DLC, well, the Season Pass holders would be pretty unhappy. Now, I'm going to make reference to one main game with regards to Halo Wars 2's microtransaction system, and that is a game by Epic Games called Paragon. It's a MOBA, similar to an RTS, and you should know what a MOBA is by now, but if you don't, it's like an RTS except you control one character. You have lanes, and you have to kill minions, and get sort of resources, and buy things, and that sort of thing. It's very similar to an RTS. I mean, it was built off Warcraft, which is an RTS game. And it uses a card system that is almost exactly the same as Blitz for Halo Wars 2. It uses a card system where you can unlock or buy card packs and you get cards for items that you can use in the game. It's almost an identical system to what Halo Wars 2 is having. And I know Paragon got pretty heavily slammed for it. But having played the game for quite a while now, it's been in open beta for a while and I've been playing it for a little bit before then, thanks to a dude who gave me a code to get into the closed alpha. I don't think it's that intrusive. Now, of course, they may make changes to the Blitz one, but from what I've seen and what I've heard, it's a very similar system. And whilst, yes, there is an element of pay to win in that somebody could spend a whole bunch of money on card packs and get amazing cards, there's also the chance that they could spend a whole bunch of money and get jack shit. And he who grinds obviously doesn't have to spend money and could get amazing cards, or could get jack shit. So there is an element of pay to win in that you get the card packs quicker, but that's just sort of expected in video games these days. I mean, microtransactions, they're in almost every game that comes out at this point. Any game with a multiplayer, and even some games without multiplayer. I'm looking at you here, Deus Ex Mankind Divided, you bitches. As much as I love your game, your microtransaction idea was fucking stupid. But I don't see the need for it in this sort of thing. I mean, it's for one game mode. It's not affecting much. It's a very closed environment. It's not like Paragon where it's the main game mode, the main focus of the game. Now, Paragon is, of course, free to play. So we can sort of forgive it a little bit for, you know, trying to make some money for the game because, my god, one, is it a good game, and two, those art assets. Those artists need a raise, Epic, I'm telling you. But in a full-priced game like Halo Wars 2, with a Season Pass, with paid DLC, I honestly think it's ridiculous. It feels to me as if the Blitz game mode was added for the sole purpose of selling microtransactions. I mean, they may not have added it for that reason, and say Microsoft might have pushed them to do it, which wouldn't surprise me given Microsoft's track record with microtransactions at the moment. They're literally pushing out microtransactions in every game that they release. Halo had it, Gears of War had it, Forza Horizon didn't have it at launch as far as I'm aware, but either have it now or are getting them at some point. And it sort of makes me feel like we just sort of have to accept them. They are here to stay. They make the developers and the publishers money. So they'll stay. And that's that. As much as I dislike them and won't partake in giving them my money unless it's for something I actually care about, like the esports Rex for Halo 5, because part of the money went to the actual esports teams and I was pretty cool with that. But the microtransaction system, pointed out in Late Night's video, in his opinion does a fair amount more than just charge people for content that's already been made, already in the game, and just locked off to make some extra money. Now he mentions the skewed leveling system, which I can understand. I mean, I can't really trust devs anymore because I've seen it in countless mobile games where once you've played for a few days, the game pretty much forces you to buy microtransactions if you want to keep playing the game. It doesn't literally force you, but it'll give you, say, a week wait time or a 2-week wait time till you can do something. You know, you might do that thing and then have to wait another week. It's ridiculous. Things like that just absolutely destroy the integrity of the game. Because at a point, you are locking off players for money. And if you've already got money from them, especially in a full-price game, then that's a bit ridiculous if you ask me. Now, I've already mentioned that he said full-price games shouldn't have microtransactions, and he goes into why about the DLC split in the community and things like that. But it just goes to show, if you ask me, that Halo 5's free DLC wasn't funded by microtransactions. It was their content that they hadn't put in the game before, and that they knew the community would be outraged if it didn't have it by the end of its life cycle. I mean, there's still a lot of content missing if you ask me, Oddball and whatnot, but, you know, I doubt we're ever going to see Oddball come into the game, and that sort of disappoints me. Now, he also mentions that he's become disappointed in the games industry, and I know I've talked about this before. I talked about this before in regards to QA testing. How the lack of QA in modern video games is going to kill the industry. That's what I feel is happening. I feel that the industry is declining because QA, lack of QA. Games are coming out with bugs absolutely everywhere. I know games now compared to games back then, back in the olden days, are a lot more complicated. I know, I'm studying video games development. I know how ridiculous they can be. But it's no excuse for not having QA testing, because if somebody buys your game, sure, you've got the sale and, you know, the publisher's happy. But if they dislike the experience and it's broken... I mean, look at the Master Chief Collection. Look how many people got put off Halo. First-time Xbox One Halo players, first-time Halo players in general, got put off Halo from the Master Chief Collection. And I know Halo 5 isn't a great game and all, and people use that as the excuse for why its community and population is so low. But a lot of that is due to the MCC being so broken that the people they tried to introduce to Halo with the MCC just figured, oh well, Halo's shit and it doesn't work, so why bother even buying the next one? And that's a fair point to have, to be fair. And the second point being microtransactions, or should I say just developers using sneaky, underhanded ways to get more money out of consumers for content that the developers have already created. Now, I know that it makes sense to create content like this, because, again, at the end of the day, they want money. The developers don't want to make a bad game, but the publishers want their money. That is that Microsoft have gone from being a publisher that care about the games, back when Bungie and Epic were doing Halo and Gears of War respectively, where they kept out, let the developers do what the developers wanted to do. Back when they were small, publishing their first few consoles and they weren't a giant in the industry. And now they literally just make games for the money. When a company's decided it's had enough with a major game franchise, Microsoft say, buy the franchise and create a new studio for it. Because they know that Halo, Gears of War, they're big names on the Xbox platform. And they don't care about the game, they just want to make sure that the series stays alive so people know that they still have first-party games and things like that, even if the first-party games turn out to be pretty naff. And that's a shame to me. Because it literally shows, in my opinion, desperation. Now, I know the Xbox One is doing well recently. The Xbox One S has outsold the PS4 for the last 3 months in a row or whatever, at least in the US. And hopefully, once Microsoft take more of a foothold against PlayStation and against Sony, they'll get out of this sort of desperation money grabbing that seems to be going on at the moment. Now, I'm sure if I were to say this to, Phil Spencer, he'd deny it completely. Saying, oh, we're not desperate, we're not after money and things like that. But the actions speak louder than the words in this case. They are trying to get as much money out of the gamers as possible. I mean, look at the microtransactions in every single Xbox One game at the moment. They built a store system for microtransactions. Being able to add bundles, being able to add extras, add-on content and things like that. It makes sense over the DLC method, but when you're now making your developers include both, that's a tad ridiculous if you ask me. What are your guys' thoughts on the microtransaction system and DLC system in Halo Wars 2? If you've got any thoughts that are different to mine, or you agree with me, or you agree with Late Night, then let me know in the comment section below. And remember, stay classy.